Welcome to Washington Today for Monday, August 4th, 2025. I'm Gary Sterkoff. Thank you for joining us. New York Governor Kathy Hochul and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker are backing a group of Texas Democrats who left their state yesterday to block a vote on new Republican-drawn congressional maps. The redrawn districts could give the Republicans 5 more seats in Congress in 2026. And this afternoon in Austin, the Texas House of Representatives convened and quickly adjourned after a roll call showed not enough members present. All of this comes while Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott threatens to remove lawmakers who didn't show up today. We will break all this down for you coming up. The Trump administration continues to defend the president's decision to fire the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics last week. His decision came after the agency issued a weak jobs report, and economists from across the political spectrum are criticizing the decision, including 2 former BLS commissioners, William Beach, who was appointed by the president in his first term, and Erica Grosjean, who served in the Obama administration, both objecting to the charge that the data was altered for political reasons. We'll hear from William Beach, the president, and Kevin Hassett, the president's top economist, coming up. We begin in Austin and Texas House Speaker Dustin Burrows.
Members, a quorum is not present. The roll has been called and a quorum has not been established. Let me begin by commending the members who did show up. Those who answered the call, honored their oath, and came here ready to work for the people of Texas. Your presence speaks volumes. You understand that the issues before us, disaster recovery, fighting for the families who lost loved ones in the floods, human trafficking, and more, are not abstract policy debates. They are real-world problems demanding immediate solutions. But instead of confronting those challenges, some of our colleagues have fled the state in their duty. They've left the state, abandoned their posts, and turned their backs on the constituents they swore to represent. They've shirked their responsibilities under the direction and pressure of out-of-state politicians and activists who don't know the first thing about what's right for Texas. To be absolutely clear, leaving the state does not stop this House from doing its work. It only delays it. And every day this chamber is unable to act, the cost grows. In response to this dereliction of duty, and pursuant to the rules of the House, I am prepared to recognize a motion to place a call on the House and any other motions necessary to compel the return of absent members. Should such a motion prevail, I will immediately sign the warrants for the civil arrest of the members who have said they will not be here. As Speaker, I will do everything in my power to establish quorum and move this body forward by any and all means available to this office. To those who are absent, return now. Show the courage to face the issues you were elected to solve. Come back and fulfill your duty, because this House will not sit quietly while you obstruct the work of the people. The people of Texas are watching, and so is the nation. And if you choose to continue down this road, you should know there will be consequences.
Texas House Speaker Dustin Burrows this afternoon in Austin, and we'll get to Governor Abbott's comments and late word this afternoon that he has ordered the arrest of all these Democratic members who left yesterday, more than 50 of them. A group of them went to New York, where they found support from their Democratic governor, Kathy Hochul.
Now I have news flash for Republicans in Texas. This is no longer the Wild West. We're not going to tolerate our democracy being stolen in a modern-day stagecoach hoist by a bunch of law-breaking cowboys. Americans don't want a system that's stacked against them. They believe in fairness. It's fundamental. And I'll tell you this, they're done with the chaos. They're done with the cruelty. And I would say they're ready to vote Republicans out of power in Washington, certainly in the upcoming 2026 elections. Republicans know this. They've seen the polls. They know they're sliding downhill because Americans are rejecting their policies. So this is why they're fighting. They know they'll lose the elections, but to subvert the will of the people, they're hell-bent on rigging the system. Rigging the system is un-American. Congressional districts are never redrawn mid-decade as they are. But here they are, flagrantly breaking the rules so they can hold on to power. And with that power, they're going to inflict even more pain. And they'd rather eliminate fairness in the system than to proceed knowing they're going to lose. They'd rather silence voters than serve them. From my perspective, to refuse to stand up and fight for our democracy as we are joining in solidarity with our friends from Texas means one thing. You won't fight for democracy, you're doomed to lose it. For almost 250 years, our democratic experience has been fought for, and it's endured. As governor of a state where many of those early battles took place, we're commemorating them next year. Those battles for freedom were here. That's why I cannot stand by and let this happen, while Donald Trump and his co-conspirator, Greg Abbott, erode our democracy and drag us toward authoritarianism. Now, what Texas and Republican states are doing at the direction of Donald Trump, I say is nothing short of a legal insurrection against our Capitol. Legal meaning they're using the legal process. Does not mean it's legal, and it must be stopped. If Republicans are willing to rewrite these rules to give themselves an advantage, then they're leaving us no choice. We must do the same. There's a phrase, you have to fight fire with fire. That is a true statement of how we're feeling right now. And as I've said, another overused but applicable phrase, all's fair in love and war. That's why I'm exploring with our leaders every option to redraw our state congressional lines as soon as possible. Our state legislative leaders, Carol Heastie, Majority Leader Andre Stewart Cousins, they're on board, as are their members. We're already working on a legislative process, reviewing our legal strategies, and we'll do everything in our power to stop this brazen assault. As I mentioned, these are profiles in courage sitting with me here today. They left their homes, left their families, left their loved ones in a world of uncertainty. But our history is defined by people who are brave patriots, who will not accept the status quo, who believe they must use their voices and their positions to stand up for others. And I could not be prouder to have an opportunity to meet them, each and every one of them, and hear their personal stories. And I thank them so much for making this journey. You are on the right side of history. And you're not alone.
Thank you.
We are in solidarity with each and every one of you and your colleagues in another state hosted by my great friend, J.B. Pritzker, who welcome you as well. As I said, history will judge us on how we respond to this moment. But here in New York, we will not stand on the sidelines with the timid souls on the sidelines who don't care, will not invest their heart and soul into this battle. This is a war. We are at war. And that's why the gloves are off, and I say, bring it on.
At this event, Governor Hochul was asked if New York's independent redistricting commission should be disbanded or changed in order to fast-track a redistricting process in the state.
Yes. I'm tired of fighting this fight with my hand tied behind my back. With all due respect to the good government groups, politics is a political process. And to think that we're going to do this with a purity test and make sure it's completely fair to everybody involved, the reason we are able to draw the lines because we're Democrats, because the majority of people in this state selected us, elected us to be leaders. And when we say that we cannot use that power to its fullest, then we're abdicating the responsibility that we all have. Republicans take over the legislature, they can have at it. But until then, we're in charge, and we're sick and tired of being pushed around when other states don't have the same aspirations that we always have had. And I hold those dear. But I cannot ignore that the playing field has changed dramatically. And shame on us if we ignore that fact and cling tight to the vestiges of the past. That era is over. Donald Trump eliminated that forever.
And we heard Governor Hochul mention her colleague in Illinois, Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker. He had his own event in Chicago on Sunday night. And speaking at that event was Texas House Democratic leader Gene Wu.
The tool they're using is a racist, gerrymandered map. A map that seeks to use racial lines to divide hard-working communities who have spent decades building up their power and strengthening their voices. And Governor Abbott is doing this in submission to Donald Trump. So that Donald Trump could steal these communities' power and voice. We will not be complicit in the destruction of our own communities. That's right. We will not be complicit in the destruction of any communities in Texas. We will hold people accountable, and we will defend our state to the absolute best of our abilities. We're not here to play political games. We're here to demand an end to this corrupt process.
Yeah, absolutely.
We ask them to stop hiding things from the public. We ask them to stop doing things behind closed doors. We ask them to stop attacking Texas communities. They refused because their loyalty and fealty to Donald Trump overrides all other interests.
Texas House Democratic leader Gene Wu. In a statement to the Chicago Tribune, the Illinois Senate's Republican leader, John Curran, said, quote, Texas Democratic legislators walking out to come to the most rigged state in the country at the invitation of a governor who broke his promise to voters not once but twice to create the most gerrymandered maps in the nation is the height of hypocrisy. Governor Pritzker and his legislative allies have already rigged Illinois with a 14-3 congressional map that is shameless in its attempt to remove choice from voters. Well, Governor Pritzker was asked about this comment at the event in Chicago yesterday.
Well, let me be clear. We passed a map in Illinois that follows the Constitution, and that is not what Governor Abbott is trying to do in Texas. We believe that the people of Texas deserve to have fair representation and not to have the game changed in the middle of the decade. That's right. There already is litigation about the original map that they put in place. Now they want to change it again. That, no doubt, will end up being litigated too. But let me be clear that they are attempting to cheat. And, you know, I think we all know Donald Trump is a cheater. Yeah. Right. So is the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, in so many ways. And we here in Illinois believe that we're, what is 2025? We've had elections now for, the 5 years that this map has been in place. We want to continue to have those fair elections, and we're proud of the fact that Democrats do better than Republicans in those districts where they're hyper-competitive, frankly, and we won in virtually every one of those districts that was competitive.
But when you look at a map that's 14-3,
yeah, but you're talking about the outcome, Paris. You're talking about the outcome. Look, the fact that we are very good in Illinois about delivering for the people of Illinois and that people react to that and vote for our candidates is very different than cheating mid-decade by rewriting the rules because their cult leader, Donald Trump, tells them to do it.
Governor Sullivan and New York Governor Kathy Hochul have both talked about the possibility of redistricting there. Would you accuse them of also cheating if they do so?
No, remember, all bets are off when the cult leader and would-be dictator of the United States tells Texas to midstream change the game when they know that they're going to lose in 2026. All bets are off. Everything's got to be on the table, and that So.
But how is it cheating in one sense and not cheating in another?
The cheating here is the fact that we are midstream in 2025, and they want to rewrite the map, and for only one reason. The cult leader of their party tells them to do it because he knows he's going to lose control of the House of Representatives.
Illinois Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker. And this from the Texas Tribune. Governor Greg Abbott informed Texas House Democrats late Sunday that he would attempt to have them removed from office if they do not return to Austin to pass the GOP's proposed new congressional maps. He cited a non-binding 2021 legal opinion from Attorney General Ken Paxton, who said it would be up to a court to decide whether a lawmaker who had left the state to deny quorum had forfeited their office. If a court were to decide that the legislators had vacated their offices, Abbott would have to call an election to replace the members. That from the Texas Tribune. And Governor Abbott, just about 30 minutes ago, on social media posted an image of a TV headline that reads, "Texas Governor orders arrest of Democrats who fled the state." He posted along with that image, more coming later today and tomorrow. And the Washington Post reporting this afternoon that officials will have difficulty arresting the Democrats, however, because most of them are in suburban Chicago and beyond the jurisdiction of Texas authorities. Now, Governor Abbott talked about all of this earlier today on Fox News.
You said in your statement that you put out today to all of them, in a letter to them, you said, in addition to abandoning their offices, these legislators may also have committed felonies. What is the felony? What are the penalties for this?
So very simply, it would be bribery if any lawmaker took money to perform or to refuse to perform an act in the legislature. And the reports are these legislators have been both, they sought money and they offered money to skip the vote, to leave the legislature, to take a legislative act. That would be bribery. And so the facts will have to come out. But I think based upon comments made by legislators themselves, they face a possibility of facing bribery charges, which is a second-degree felony in the state of Texas. There's one way to cure that, and that is if they get back to the state of Texas and make quorum today at a hearing that we have at 3 o'clock, they can cure themselves of any quid pro quo that would subject them to potential bribery charges.
As you heard, the Texas House of Representatives convened and quickly adjourned without a quorum. You can see all of today's House session in Austin and the events with Governors Hochul and Pritzker at cspan.org and the C-SPAN Now mobile app. Now to President Trump's firing over the weekend of Bureau of Labor Statistics Commissioner Erica McIntarfer. Here's what the president had to say about it yesterday to reporters in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
We're seeing phenomenal numbers in terms of the business we do with other countries and the business we do within our own country. I mean, really phenomenal numbers. We'll be announcing a new statistician sometime over the next 3 or 4 days. We had no confidence. I mean, the numbers were ridiculous, what she announced, but that was just one negative number. All of the numbers seem to be great, and so we'll see how that comes out. And if you remember, just before the election, this woman came out with these phenomenal numbers on Biden's economy. Phenomenal numbers. And then right after the election, they announced that those numbers were wrong. And that's what they did the other day. So it's a scam, in my opinion.
National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett talked more about it this morning on CNBC.
Right. Well, first of all, they could be politically manipulated because they're so untransparent. There's a black box system out there making the jobs numbers that needs to be improved. Indeed, the UK saw a similar circumstance like this a few years ago, and they actually shut down the data agency for a month or so until they got their ducks in a row. The fact is that we had these blockbuster numbers for Joe Biden last year that suddenly we lost about 1 million of them after he dropped out of the election. The fact is that you know, I'm an economist. I'm not a politician. But when politicians look at numbers that make them wonder, then that suggests that there needs to be more transparency. So, for example, if I'm running the BLS and I have the biggest revision, really think about it, the biggest revision outside of COVID in 50 years, then it's incumbent on me to explain why in a very transparent way, to show how the numbers add up, to show exactly where the revision came from and what you're doing to address it so it doesn't happen again. If you don't do that, then you create a circumstance where politicians are going to wonder. And for goodness sakes, we know that hopefully not not much in the data area, but all over the U.S. government, there have been people who have been resisting Trump everywhere they can. And so to make sure that that's not going to happen in the data agencies, to make sure that the data are as transparent and as reliable as possible, we're going to get highly qualified people in there that have a fresh start and a fresh set of eyes on the problem.
And CNBC reporting that Kevin Hassett is repeatedly pointing to the revisions in Friday's employment data to justify the firing, but did not provide data showing the latest jobs report was rigged, as the president has claimed. CNBC goes on to write, revisions are common in jobs report data as the initial estimate often becomes more precise as additional payroll data becomes available in subsequent months. The data is dependent on surveys of employers, and some businesses may not file their data by the initial reporting deadline. Now, Erica McIntarfer put out a statement on social media Friday night that reads, quote, "It has been the honor of my life to serve as commissioner of BLS alongside the many dedicated civil servants tasked with measuring a vast and dynamic economy. It is vital and important work, and I thank them for their service to this nation." And as we said, the group Friends of BLS, a group chaired by former commissioners Erica Grosjean, an Obama appointee, and William Beach, who was President Trump's appointee during his first term, said in a statement, quote, "The rationale for firing Dr. McIntarfer is without merit and undermines the credibility of federal economic statistics that are a cornerstone of intelligent economic decision-making by businesses, families, and policymakers." Now, yesterday on CNN, William Beach talked about the president's claim that the labor numbers were rigged.
There's no way for that to happen. The commissioner doesn't do anything to collect the numbers. The commissioner doesn't see the numbers until Wednesday before they're published. By the time the commissioner sees the numbers, they're all prepared. They're locked into the computer system. The only thing the commissioner does on Wednesday is to kind of do the edits on the text. So there's no hands-on at all for the commissioner. I was commissioner, and I was sometimes locked out of the process of actually, where the people were working in the building. So there's no way for doing that. What I think really upset the president on Friday were the revisions to May and June, big revisions. But that's because, like every time we publish on Friday, there are revisions to the previous 2 months. This is a survey, and a survey has sample returns. People have done surveys. You answer your phone.
It's basically like a poll.
Yeah, it's like a poll.
Okay.
Not everybody in the country is asked the question, are you working? Are you looking for work? Just a handful. And businesses, about 600,000 businesses. Well, they don't all get their returns in on time. I would like them all to come in on time, but BLS keeps the door open for 2 more months to get more information. So what you saw on Friday was the effect of trying to do a better job, getting more information. And let me just end with this. Studies show that BLS is doing a better job now than they did 20 years ago, 20 and 30 years ago, in estimating the first number. So even though it's revised 2 more times, that 73,000 will be revised 2 more times, and they're more accurate now than they were 30 years ago. So I said groundless. I don't think there's any grounds at all for this firing, and it really hurts the statistical system. It undermines credibility in BLS. Suppose that they get a new commissioner, and this person, male or female, are just the best people possible, right? And they do a bad number. Well, everybody's going to think, well, it's not as bad as it probably really is, because they're going to suspect political influence. So this is damaging. This is not what we need to have.
So a couple follow-ups for you, but let's start on the revisions piece. One of the things that the president posted about, he says this is the same Bureau of Labor Statistics that overstated the jobs growth in March 2004 by approximately 818,000 jobs, and then again right before the presidential election. Now, he's talking about the overall year in that first bigger number, right? Does he have any point here when he says that, well, things looked politically better for my opponent back at the time than they actually were?
Well, I don't think the timing is right, even if that were a good argument. The first revisions were announced, the preliminary estimates were announced in August. And in August, right in the middle of the campaign, the Democratic candidate was faced with much fewer job growths than than expected. I suspect the candidate Harris would have liked to have run on 818,000 more jobs in the economy. And then the final revision came out as 600,000. And here's another thing. We always revise every year we revise the numbers. When I was commissioner, we had a 500,000 job revision during President Trump's first term. And why do we do that? Because firms are created or firms go out of business, and we don't really know that during the course of the year until we reconcile against a real full count of all the businesses. We do that once a year. And once we do the reconciliation, like reconciling your checkbook, you find out whether you've got as much money or you have less.
William Beach, who President Trump appointed head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics in his first term, speaking yesterday on CNN's State of the Union. And here's former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers yesterday. He was on ABC News this week.
I mean, this is way beyond anything that Richard Nixon ever did. I'm surprised that other officials have not responded by resigning themselves, as took place when Richard Nixon fired people lawlessly. This is a preposterous charge. These numbers are put together by teams of literally hundreds of people following detailed procedures that are in manuals. There's no conceivable way that the head of the BLS could have manipulated this number. The numbers are in line with what we're seeing from all kinds of private sector sources. This is the stuff of democracies giving way to authoritarianism. Firing statisticians goes with threatening the heads of newspapers. It goes with launching assaults on universities. It goes with launching assaults on law firms that defend clients that the elected boss finds uncongenial. This is really scary stuff, and it can hardly be surprising that when the rule of law is a bit in question, that there's a big uncertainty premium in the markets that is operating to both make there be less investment, which slows the economy down, and also means there's less supply so that there's more inflationary pressure.
Former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers on This Week from ABC News yesterday. Now, several nonpartisan organizations also criticized the move, including the National Association for Business Economics and the American Economic Association. The Association of Public Data Users said in a statement, quote, "Under the law, disliking the data is not a qualifying reason to remove the BLS commissioner from her 4-year appointment. Under our democracy, it is unacceptable to fire someone for publishing data collected in accordance with scientific standards." They also called on Congress to, quote, "investigate the factors that led to Commissioner McIntyre's removal, to strongly urge the BLS commissioner's continued service, and ensure that the nonpartisan integrity of the position is retained." And we talked about all of this earlier today on Washington Journal with Michael Konzal, Economic Security Project Senior Director of Policy Research, and E.J. Antoni, Chief Economist at the Heritage Foundation. Here's Michael Konzal.
Between threatening central bank independence, between firing of the unprecedented, real banana republic stuff, the firing of the Bureau of Labor Statistics commissioner who oversees our data because Trump thought it was rigged and because he didn't like a specific jobs number, something that's been condemned by economists of all stripes. I mean, one of the former BLS commissioners, who was a longstanding economist at Heritage, where my co-panelist works for 15 years, denounced it as being irresponsible. A lot of businesses, a lot of financial markets are very worried about this stuff because, administrations come and go, taxes, jobs numbers, they all come and go, and, partisans will be fighting about it forever. But when you attack the data collection process, when you attack central bank independence, when you attack the fundamental institutions of economic policymaking, like this administration has done in an unprecedented way, that's banana republic stuff, and that will stay with us for decades.
Well, those were a lot of allegations, and I would love to see the evidence that actually backs them up. For example, the idea that people are more worried now than they were 2 months ago, not according to the Consumer Sentiment Survey, which, by the way, oversamples Democrats, and yet that has improved over the last 2 months, consumer expectations as well. You can look at any kind of data, whether it's from the University of Michigan, whether it's from the Conference Board, whether it's from the New York Fed. All of those different surveys that all measure how consumers are feeling about the economy have actually improved over the last 2 months. So that's just one example. But again, virtually everything that was just stated is completely false. As far as the firing of the BLS,
he fired the commissioner on Friday. This is an unprecedented act.
Hold on, Mr. Scott. We'll get back to you.
As far as the firing of the BLS commissioner goes, that person has overseen problems in the data for 3 years now. I and many others, not just me, many folks have been pointing out that since the spring of 2022, there have been serious problems with the BLS data. And that has been confirmed by the fact that the BLS will publish one series of numbers and then later publish another series of numbers that contradicts it. And sure enough, that latter series is actually used to adjust those monthly jobs numbers. And that's why we had, for example, in the last year, we had this massive annual revision where we had to subtract hundreds of thousands of jobs from the figures that we thought we had. And so that problem is continuing to this day. Again, just last week, we got data from the BLS, more accurate data, that shows that in the last quarter of 2024, the jobs numbers were overestimated by hundreds of thousands. So there are clearly problems with the numbers. You can look at, for example, the survey response rate for those monthly jobs numbers. It has plummeted. It's down to only 42%. So more than half of the businesses that we're surveying every month to ask about the jobs numbers, we don't even get responses from. Of course you're going to have problems with that kind of data. And clearly, if this person was not able to correct those issues, then we should give somebody else a chance.
E.J. Antoni, Heritage Foundation Chief Economist, and Michael Konzal, Economic Security Project Senior Director of Policy and Research on this morning's Washington Journal. You can see the whole segment at cspan.org and the free C-SPAN Now mobile app. You're listening to Washington Today.
The patriarch C.F. Seabrook was hailed as the Henry Ford of agriculture. His son, Jack, a keen businessman, was poised to take over what Life magazine called the biggest vegetable factory on earth. His son, John Seabrook, has written about his grandfather and father in his book called The Spinach King. It's subtitled The Rise and Fall of an American Dynasty. Work on The Spinach King started in the early 1980s when John Seabrook was with the New Yorker magazine. John Seabrook says, "I had a grandfather who was a champion of white supremacy, a true believer in the superiority of the Nordic Christian male."
Author John Seabrook with his book, The Spinach King, The Rise and Fall of an American Dynasty, on this episode of Booknotes Plus with our host, Brian Lamb. Booknotes Plus is available wherever you get your podcasts and on the C-SPAN Now app.
Welcome back to Washington Today. From Axios, House Speaker Mike Johnson visited a settlement in the occupied West Bank on Monday as part of a private visit to Israel organized by a pro-Israel advocacy group. While many Republican Congress members have visited West Bank settlements, it is highly unusual for a Speaker of the House to do so. Axios reporting that also on the trip were Republican Representatives Michael McCall and Nathaniel Moran and Michael Cloud, all of Texas, and Claudia Tenney of New York. She heads the Friends of Judea and Samaria caucus in Congress. That is a group of members who support Israeli settlements and advocates for annexation of the West Bank. Speaker Johnson posted this video to social media.
Mike Johnson, the 56th Speaker of the House of Representatives in America. We're here with a delegation of members of the House. We're so grateful to be in Israel, particularly on this day, recognizing the destruction of the two temples and 2 times in history. But it is such a moving time for us to be here at the Wailing Wall. We've offered our prayers. We put our notes into the wall as is traditional. And we're so moved by the hospitality of the people and the great love of Israel. Our prayer is that America will always stand with Israel and that we will we pray for the preservation and the peace of Jerusalem. That's what Scripture tells us to do. It's a matter of faith for us and a commitment that we have. God bless you.
Axios also reporting that 3 Israeli officials with direct knowledge of the trip said it was organized by Heather Johnston, the founder of the U.S.-Israel Education Association, a conservative pro-Israeli advocacy group. And campaign 2026 news now. Another Republican joined the race for Senate in Georgia today, Derek Dooley. the son of former University of Georgia football coach Vince Dooley, announced he is running to replace Democratic Senator John Ossoff. Political reports Derek Dooley is longtime friends with Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, but faces a crowded Republican primary with Representatives Mike Collins and Buddy Carter already in the race. And in South Carolina, Republican Representative Nancy Mace announced she's running for governor. She released this video this morning.
A House Republican has drawn the ire of both Democrats and members of her own party.
She has a way of getting under their skin.
Representative Nancy Mace. Firebrand Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace.
She's a fighter. I know about that. She's a fighter.
She learned resilience early on. Mace became the first woman to graduate from South Carolina's famed military college.
You've taken a lot of abuse for standing up for the rights of women.
But what they forget is that, Laura, I'm the first woman to graduate from the Citadel. I will not be bullied into silence.
Nancy Mace scores a huge victory in her fight to keep biological men out of women's bathrooms.
We will be courageous. We will be resilient.
When she sets her sight on something, she's tough.
And we will be prepared to take on the challenges of this historic moment.
Video released by South Carolina Republican Representative Nancy Mace as she announces her candidacy for governor. She joins South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson, Lieutenant Governor Pamela Yvette, and Representative Ralph Norman, along with State Senator Josh Kimbrell on the Republican side. No Democrats have announced a run, but according to Live5News.com in Charleston, State Representative Jermaine Johnson launched an exploratory committee in May. South Carolina has not had a Democratic governor since 2003. A reminder, you can find all of our coverage at cspan.org and the free C-SPAN Now mobile app. That's also where you can find this program as a podcast. You can also find it on YouTube. Just search Washington Today. And for more on the stories that are shaping Washington every day, get our daily email word for word. Just go to cspan.org/connect to subscribe. I'm Gary Sterikoff. Thanks a lot for listening today to Washington Today.